Navigate the shadows, embrace the light, and embrace the fog, or not.
I don't know why I chose to stay in that cabin. It was supposed to be a quick escape, a weekend getaway from the monotony of city life. But now, as I sit in the dimly lit living room, the wind howling outside like some ravenous beast, I regret every decision that led me here. It all started with a flyer I found in a coffee shop, a rustic cabin deep in the woods, advertised as a retreat from the modern world. It seemed charming enough, a place to unwind and clear my head. When I arrived, the place was as described, isolated, weathered, and a bit eerie. But it was exactly what I needed, or so I thought. The first night was peaceful enough, if not a bit unsettling. The silence was profound, only broken by the occasional creak of the old wooden structure. I figured it was just the house settling, and I went to bed without much thought. That's when the dream started. I don't remember falling asleep, but I remember vividly what I saw. I was in a forest, dense and dark. I was being watched by something just out of sight. The feeling of eyes boring into me was so intense that I woke up in a cold sweat, my heart pounding. I dismissed it as stress-induced nightmares and went back to sleep. The second night was different. I woke up to the sound of scratching. Slow, deliberate scratching coming from the walls. I got up, half terrified, half angry at myself for letting my imagination run wild. I turned on the lights and inspected the walls, but found nothing unusual. The scratching stopped as soon as I turned on the light, and I convinced myself it was just some animal outside. It wasn't until the third night that things took a darker turn. I was reading by the fireplace, the crackling flames providing a false sense of comfort. My phone, which I'd left on the coffee table, suddenly buzzed with a notification. It was a text from an unknown number. "I see you." My first thought was it was a prank, but then I remembered that I had no cell service here. The message shouldn't have gone through. I ignored it and tried to focus on my book. But the atmosphere in the cabin had changed. The air was heavy, suffocating. The shadows seemed to writhe and twist as if alive. I decided to turn in early. As I made my way to the bedroom, I heard the scratching again, louder this time. It was coming from the ceiling. I looked up, my breath catching in my throat. The scratching became rhythmic, almost like it was communicating something, but I couldn't make out any pattern. I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling until the scratching stopped abruptly. I drifted into an uneasy slumber, only to be jolted awake by a loud thud. I sat up, heart racing, and saw a dark shape standing by the window. It was a figure, obscured by the darkness, but it was unmistakably human in shape. I couldn't see its face, but I could feel its gaze, cold and penetrating. I scrambled out of bed and grabbed a flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness as I approached the window. But the figure was gone. I checked the cabin inside and out, but there was no sign of anyone. I locked all the doors and windows and tried to calm myself down. The final night was the worst. I was woken by a feeling of being watched again. I looked around, but the room was empty. I decided to leave, to get out of there as quickly as possible. I packed my things frantically, barely able to think straight. As I was about to leave, I noticed something strange. On the floor, in the corner of the living room, was a small pile of dirt. But it wasn't just dirt. It was forming a shape, a pattern. a crude outline of a person with strange symbols etched around it. I didn't stay to investigate. I fled the cabin, my mind racing with the dread of what I had witnessed. I drove back to civilization, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly they ached. Even now, as I sit in my apartment, the fear hasn't left me. I keep checking the locks on my doors, and every scratch or creak sends my heart into overdrive. I don't know what I saw, what was in that cabin, or who was trying to reach me through those texts. But I do know one thing. I'll never set foot in those woods again. And if you ever come across a flyer for a secluded retreat in the forest, I suggest you throw it away and never look back. Because some places are better left alone.